Hi, my name is Ashley, and today I wanted to share with you my favorite books for teaching kindness. So, of course, I'm going to leave everything linked in the description below, but I did just want to put out a reminder that it's very easy to get books secondhand. So whether you want to use a local bookstore, you can also go on YouTube. There are so many people that have read these books out loud already on YouTube. There's also something called Thrift Books. And if you're a Title I school teacher, there's something called First Book Marketplace. So books are heavily discounted. You definitely have options. There's, of course, the library. You can use the Libby app, Hoopla app. Those usually come free with your library. So just wanted to put in that reminder because I think a lot of times people don't realize what their options are. Anyway, let's just jump right in. The first book I feel like a lot of people have heard of because it was quite popular a few years ago. It's called The Invisible Boy. So The Invisible Boy actually starts out really sad. It's about a boy named Brian who feels quite literally invisible and overlooked. And that all changes when a new student comes into the classroom. His name is Justin. And Brian shows Justin kindness. He does an act of kindness, and in return Justin invites Brian to work with him in a group project, so he kind of reciprocates that kindness. And once they're working together in this group project, Brian has a little bit of confidence because him and Justin kind of have a slight connection, and so Brian's able to kind of shine a little bit more around the rest of his group mates, and his group mates are able to kind of get to know Brian and see him in a different light. And then this just kind of causes a ripple effect where Brian starts to make more friends and the other classmates start being a lot more kind to each other, and it just kind of ripples throughout the entire classroom. And in the end, Brian no longer feels invisible. He kind of finds his place in the classroom and kind of gains the confidence to be himself. And what I like about this book is it all started with one initial act of kindness, and it kind of just shows how that can create a ripple effect, and there's a lot of cause and effect from that. So I thought it was a really sweet read. The second book that I want to talk about is The Sandwich Swap. So this starts off with two girls who are friends, and they bring completely different types of sandwiches. And so when they sit down to eat lunch together and both take out their sandwiches, they voice their disgust about each other's food. And so, very similar to The Invisible Boy, this one act kind of ripples throughout the rest of the classroom and the rest of the school, and it turns into a big fight. And in the end, the girls end up swapping their sandwiches, and they embrace their differences, and it's also embracing cultural differences. And I think this book is really great for teaching children how to be respectful and to lead with curiosity. Something may disgust you, but that doesn't always need to be vocalized, and it's always important to kind of lead with curiosity rather than maybe leading with your opinion sometimes, or just being outright disgusted when you don't really understand or don't really know. So yeah, I think this is a really good one for teaching kindness, but just also promotes really good discussion about even when things should be vocalized and how they could be vocalized. Okay, so book number 3 is I'm Sorry by Barry Timms. So I thought this book was so cute. I just think it's adorable. It's about two best friends. They're animals. It's about two best friends, and they really love and care for each other. They're always playing together. They're always doing things together. And there's kind of a misunderstanding that occurs. It wasn't malice on either side. It was just a pure misunderstanding, and they end up getting into a fight. And so one of the reasons why I like this book so much is it talks a lot about conflict resolution, and again, leading with curiosity and leading with kindness rather than just being reactive and hurting people's feelings. I think it also shows that sometimes we may hurt people's feelings accidentally. It's not always about intent, but it's about impact. So, sometimes misunderstanding happens. There's also this cute part in the book where one of the characters just wants the fight to end, and so they're I'm sorry. And the other character's sorry isn't a magic word. It only works if you truly mean it. And I thought that was a really cute discussion point too, because That's true. It's important. Like, you can't just say sorry and be like, okay, we're done. Like, everything goes back to normal. Like, you have to truly be sorry. And again, it's about like leading with understanding. So, more meaningful conversation. I think that's adorable. Okay, so book number 4. This one is quite popular. I feel like a lot of people know this book. It is called Last Stop on Market Street. And so this book isn't necessarily about kindness in like an extremely direct way, but I love its focus on community and its power of like perspective. So Last Stop on Market Street it's about a boy named CJ who takes a weekly bus ride with his grandmother. And during the ride, she helps him find beauty in their routine and gratitude in their routine. And it's like, he doesn't understand, like, why can't we just like drive there? Or why can't we just do this or do that? And she kind of points out like the subtle ways in which they have community. And it's such a blessing that she's able to spend time with this person on the bus or walk past this person's shop, and they kind of all get to know each other and build this like solid community. And I just think it's sweet. Like, I think it's like a subtle way of showing like how we maybe like take kindness for granted, and how we kind of like don't always see it because we're so used to it. And just another way of like looking at things more positively rather than from a place of lack. So I really liked it. I think it's so sweet. The next book is Each Kindness. Now, I would not recommend this book to just like any audience. I feel like with younger kids, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to read this book, it's just going to require a little bit of discussion because it is a sad story and it doesn't really have a happy ending, but I do think the message is incredibly important. So let me just get into it and I'll explain. So Each Kindness is told from the perspective of one of the other students in class. And she's watching this new student, Maya, come into the classroom. And Maya, like, as soon as Maya gets there, she, like, smiles at the narrator, and the narrator kind of just, like, ignores her and, like, puts her head down. And it's almost like the narrator is trying to, like, assess how Maya is going to fit into the classroom and, like, get a read on, like, what the temperature is. Like, is she going to be accepted? Is she well-liked? Before she kind of, like, makes any move with Maya. And I think the reason why this book is sad is because it kind of shows the subtle ways in which kids will often leave out other kids and the ways that they can be mean without being actually mean. So, for example, when some of the girls were playing, they didn't let Maya play with her or with them. And it's not that they're outright cruel to her or outright mean, but it's just like the subtle ways that you're like not including a person that can really stick with them. And so by the end of the story, Maya leaves. We're assuming that she moves again with her family. There's kind of an assumption that Maya like is bouncing from school to school a little bit. We're not really given the details, but Maya is left and the narrator is kind of stuck with this guilt because she never really got the opportunity to show her any kindness, and she felt really bad about that, and she kind of wishes that she was a little more inclusive. And I think this is an important lesson for students because it costs nothing to be kind. It costs nothing to be inclusive, and sometimes you may not be outright mean, but your actions are still hurtful. And you don't always get a second chance to make things up to people. That's why it's important to kind of like lead with kindness. Okay, so the next book, this one is kind of hard to find. I feel like you're probably going to have to get it secondhand or just listen to the story be read on YouTube. It's called Mr. Peabody's Apples, and I think this was written by Madonna. Like, I remember when I looked it up, I was like, oh, Madonna, okay. All right. So anyway, this is a story about a boy who sees his baseball coach steal an apple from a local business. And you kind of go through a little bit of the story where they catch him a couple times stealing this apple. And so he like tells his friend, and it eventually like spreads around, and it starts to affect the coach's reputation. Like, people kind of look at him like he's a thief. And then towards the end of the book, the truth is revealed. He wasn't, spoiler alert, he wasn't stealing the apples. He was prepaying them He was prepaying for them on Sunday, and then as the week went on, he would grab one, and it was like something that him and the business owner had kind of worked out. And so obviously the boy is incredibly apologetic and really sorry. And I think this book is incredibly relevant, especially when teaching kindness. Again, it's one, leading with curiosity, but it's also two, just like the power of gossip and the ways in which like we talk about people and how that spreads and how that can be harmful. I think this is especially relevant now that kids are starting to use social media younger and younger. So again, it's just like the power of your words, the harm unverified gossip can do. Yeah, I thought it was a powerful message. I think it was especially relevant to today. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Kindest Red. So this is about a student named Fiza. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. I did look it up. Fiza's teacher asks her and her classmates to imagine what kind of world they want to live in. And so her and her friends just think about all the different ways in which they wish their world was more kind or more positive and ideal. And so they set off and they start doing that. They basically spread all these acts of kindness and do all these positive things, and you follow them as they do each one. And I think this is a really good book for modeling friendship and for also modeling how you can make an impact and you can be a part of like creating the world that you wish for, or the world, what's that expression or that saying? It's like, oh my gosh, I think this was on my graduation hat too. Why am I blanking? It's like, be the change you be the change you wish to see. I thought it was going to be way more complicated than that. That was essentially what this book reminded me of. It's like being the change you wish to see and create the world that you would like to live in, and how your actions can have a positive effect on the world. I think it also just models friendship really beautifully. Okay, so I think that's everything that I have for today. I probably have so much more. I have so many books that I could share, but I think those are my top ones for now. Of course, if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear from them, because I'm always looking for new picture books, read alouds, chapter books, whatever. So please share them below, and I'll see you later.